Hi everyone, welcome to episode 66 of Wool and Spinning. My name is Rachel and I can be found pretty much everywhere as well for pearls. You probably know who I am if you're watching right now. This is live streamed this week. This is brought to you by our Patreons over at patreon.com/wellforpearls. I have a really bad cold. Again, I can't believe it. You guys can all roll your eyes and shake your heads at me. So if I start coughing, I'm just going to take a pause, mute the mic, and have something to drink. So bear with me. Happy Easter to everybody who's celebrating this weekend. We had a lovely day yesterday. I ended up having to call in sick to work. I just couldn't head in. So it was a very, very quiet day for me. And we decided to just, keep things mellow. Because this is live streamed, we're going to have a slightly different format than we normally do. So as I am recording and as I'm talking about what I'm working on, I'm going to look in the YouTube chat channel and I'm going to see what people have for questions. I'm not going to go back and forth to the chat channel too much because there's about a 15-second delay and it's just going to make it so annoying for you guys to watch the actual show. So, when I'm talking about my projects and as I'm sort of coming to the end and ready to move on to the next, we're going to pause for a few minutes. I'm going to answer some specific questions. I'm sure that when I'm talking about my projects week to week on the show, that there's stuff that comes up that you guys are wondering about in the moment. So this is your chance to ask. So pop your questions in the chat channel as you're thinking of them and as I'm talking about my projects, and then I'll answer them before I move on. So in today's show, we have a lot of long wool. I have finished, I cleared off my bobbins this week and I basically just got a whole bunch of stuff plied up. It feels really good to get this stuff off the bobbins and off my wheels. I'm hoping to talk quite a bit about my Zero to Hero spackle spin this year. That I'm working on this year. I have 2 samples that I finished and some feedback from you guys would be awesome. And then I really want to talk about my Marigold cowl this week because I didn't get to it last week. It was just getting too long. So hopefully I can get to that. So welcome to everybody. Thank you to our Patreons for their ongoing support and for keeping this show on the air week after week. You guys are the reason that we can go to live streaming, and then eventually the show will just be live streamed every week and everybody will be invited, and it will be I'm recording at this time on this time of the week on this day, and this is what we're doing. So really exciting progression for the show. Welcome to new viewers and to those who are returning. Thank you so much for watching week in and week out. And like I said, this format will be a little bit different, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, let's get into my finished objects. I'm just going to put my notes to the side. I just dropped a bunch of stuff. And we are going to start with my long wool spins that I pulled off of my wheel. So I have my Wensleydale sitting here already, and I thought that I would start with it. And I have 2 others, and actually one of them I'm really excited to share with you because I've actually been in touch with the farmer this past week. So that's really, really cool. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my conversation with Lori. So first off, I'm going to switch my cameras around, and then you can actually see the Wensleydale up close and a little bit more in focus. And I will go into a small box, which is really fun that I'm able to do that. So now in the next couple of minutes, you will see the Wensleydale popping up on your screen as a big in focus shot. this is one of the reasons why I wanted to go to live streaming. This is actually what I was so excited about when I started watching Twitch and looking at how other shows do live streaming in other industries. So the idea of being able to have a second camera zoomed in on what I'm talking about and what I'm working on is really awesome, because to have the high definition recording video, it's very difficult to also be able to zoom in and out on a product shot. So let me start with my Wensleydale. I'm just going to unbraid it. So this turned out to be a lace weight. It ended up being about 447 yards. And, you know, I measured it before I washed it, and I'm not actually totally sure what it ended up being not washed, like now that it's washed and thwacked and finished. And it's got a lovely halo to it. I think one of the things about Wensleydale that always really surprises me is the fact that you can't not have a halo. It's so long. The fiber itself just naturally pops out, and you know, you don't need a lot of twist to really make it you just don't need a lot of twist to hold it together. That's what I'm trying to say. And so because of that, you end up with a lower twist yarn, and it does end up naturally haloing. So I spun this at 10 to 1 on my Lendrum, but I plied it at 22 to 1 when I went to ply it. And the reason why I applied it so high twist is because when you're plying, it takes so long, and when you've got like 500 yards to ply, it just takes forever. So if you can get that ply twist in there as quickly as possible, my motto is crank up the ratio, and it'll be more effective. I tend to watch my twist angle as I'm plying. I don't tend to really tighten up that twist angle to the point where you're putting in so much ply twist that you have to count. I like to watch my twist angle, and I tend to, with this kind of wool, I like to keep my twist angle very soft. I would say that this is probably about a twist angle of like 20 degrees. It's very soft in the twist angle. See if I can get that to focus really quick. It's a very gentle, very soft twist angle. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this to focus for you. And try. No. You're not going to be able to see it any closer than this, but you can see the twist angle there. Like it's very gentle. There's some areas where the yarn is really marled, and it where I have two colors twisting together, and because of that, it really creates a very gentle color twisting without being really overt, because I find the more severe the twist angle is, and when there's marling like this, the more you notice the color twisting. Whereas with this, it's sort of, yeah, it's there, but it's not too bad. I'm really interested to see what this will look like in knitted lace. It'll be really interesting to see what that looks like. So Rebecca's got a question. Just gorgeous, wondering what the wraps per inch is. Is it dense for lace? I'm used to commercial yarns being like 400 yards and 4 ounces for a fingering, and a lot higher than that for lace weight. Yeah, great question, Rebecca. So this is only 3.5 ounces. This is 1,700 yards per pound. So that's my grist. And Wensleydale, because it's a long wool, it's very heavy. It's a very dense fiber. So you tend to have not as much yardage. Like BFL, out of 4 ounces, you can get a lot more yardage from 4 ounces of merino than you can from 4 ounces of BFL. Not to say that you can't not spin really BFL really super fine, but it's just a denser, heavier wool. So same with this. It's Wensleydale. It's very dense. So these fibers, because this is only 3.5 ounces and I got almost 500 yards, because I have a baby skein in here too that's about, I think it's like 100 yards. So this little baby skein is 100 yards, and then this is 447. So I have about 600 yards here in total. But yeah, you're right. Lace weight does tend to be much higher yards per pound, higher yardage per 4 ounces. You might have 600-700 yards. So I have about 600 here. if I include this little baby skein. So I don't know if I would use this baby skein in a project, and that's only because the colors matched up really well, and which is great, but they're really, really bright in comparison to the rest of the skein. Like this skein is quite muted and there's a lot of barber pulling, whereas with the baby skein, the colors are quite a bit brighter because they stayed together. So, yeah. Is there any other questions? So Rebecca says, great point, less crimp in general make denser yarns. The fibers just don't push away from each other quite as much. That's exactly it. Yeah, well said, Becca. Absolutely. So I have another long wool spin that I'm going to show you. And this is my Romney. So this is Little Bluebird, and it was spunky eclectic. I'm going to put this aside for just a minute, and then I'll reskein it and put them all together. So this is Little Bluebird. I'm totally and completely in love with this yarn. I just, oh my goodness. When I started applying it, I thought, oh dear, because it started really barber pulling and I really didn't like the results that I was getting, and none of the colors were matching up at all. Not that I was thinking that they would, but I just sort of hoped that they would at least a little bit. In the end, they did. And the yarn itself, I just love how it finished. So this ended up being this is a little bit higher. So this is a full 4 ounces, and I got 590 yards out of this one. And I don't know what the grist is. If somebody wants to quickly calculate it, it's 113 grams, and I got 490 yards. So if somebody knows how to calculate grist, that would be awesome if you guys could calculate that really quick. And what's interesting about this spin in comparison to the Wensleydale is that it actually feels a lot, not softer, but it's lighter. The Romney I've spun it very, very gently. I spun it at 8-1 on my Lendrum, and there was a couple of points where I was like, ooh, I wonder if I'm putting in enough twist, and I kept pulling it back and checking to make sure that it was twist locked and that my fibers weren't drifting apart. And it was really interesting because as I was spinning and checking it, and I kept pulling it off the bobbin, and then I do like a plyback test, I just kept thinking, oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. I just love this yarn. You know how sometimes you make something and you just love it? This was one of those things. I really, really, and there's this part, I'm kind of gushing about my yarn, but you guys are yarny, so you get it. There's this one part in here where all the coral and the red of the breast of the bluebird all kind of matched up with this really pale sky gray blue, and I just love how it turned out. So the way that the fiber was dyed, and as I was spinning, it was really interesting because there are these big chunks of blue and black, and underneath, let me move this little baby skein out of the way. I always end up with one bobbin that has a little bit more, and so that's why I end up with those little baby skeins, because I tend to do those from a center pull ball. So there's all of this black in there, and there are these big chunks of black in the braid. So there's like blue, black, and then there was these areas with this orange that ended up, because it combined with the black and the brown, so it almost created like a coral. So there was these little chunks of orange, but the staple length of Romney is quite a bit longer, so it was drafting like multiple colors. It was really interesting. So you end up with these areas that really ended up being gray because there was no oh, Rebecca wants to know what the yardage was again. The yardage of this was 490 yards, and it's 1900 yards per pound, she says. So yeah, so it's basically the same grist as my Wensleydale. That's really helpful. So these are very similar yarns because the Wensleydale was 1790, so it's basically 1800 yards per pound, and this is 1900. So very, very similar in grist. Because of that graying of the color, and you've got that orange and the brown drafting at the same time, and you've got those colors on the same staple length, you end up with these areas of the yarn that are just very, very muted. and really interesting. And yet overall, when you glance at the yarn, it looks like it's blue. And I suspect when I knit it up, it'll be blue. So this is one of those yarns that I'm actually really tempted to cast it on right now, but I really can't because I have other things I'm supposed to finish. And Katrina would yell at me because I have stuff that I need to finish for her and for stuff that her and I are working on. And the cool thing about this though is that I think this is one of those situations where if you knit a shawl, like let's say I did the Multnomah, and it would be similar to the one that I did out of the hedgehog fibers. I did it eons ago, and I added all the beads at the bottom, and beads help help a shawl to stay blocked, which is really nice because they add weight. But this would be a really interesting yarn, and the Wensleydale same, to add beads to a border. But you'd have to decide what color you want to highlight. Like, would you add beads to the border and highlight this coral color? Or would you add beads to the border and highlight this really bright blue color? It would be a really interesting thing because I could see an argument being made for both. You know, I could see an argument being made for the blue because then the overall tone of the shawl is blue. And then I can also see the argument for adding the corally brown because then that would really pop. When you look at the shawl, you would actually see them because you'd have these beads tying it all together. So I really would be curious about that, what people would choose. I maybe wouldn't do black. I think mostly because black can be very stark. And even though this is a slightly warmer black because of the brown, I maybe wouldn't do that just because I think it would make the overall tone of the yarn very dark. Oh, it's going to overexpose itself trying to show you what the yarn is. So I think I would maybe go with the blue if I was to choose beads. I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there about beads, but I've been thinking about this. It's been on the top of my mind. So one of the things that I will say about these two yarns, and let me just wrap this up again, and then I'll put them next to each other and you can see. I just am the sheen on the Wensleydale. When you look at the Romney and you think, oh yeah, it's got a lot of sheen, but then you put it next to the Wensleydale and it's like, yeah, the Romney has no sheen. Like, it's amazing how different they are. So oh, Katrina's laughing at me. I don't blame you, Katrina, but I have to get our socks done. So yeah, look at the difference between these two with the sheen. Like, this has sheen for sure, but this one, the Wensleydale, it has way more sheen, which is really interesting. Like, it's just that much, much longer staple. I'm not sure what the average staple of Romney is. Part of the problem is that there are so many breeds of Romney out there, and I think this Romney was spinning up at about 5 inches of staple. I think when I had initially pulled it off to see what it was about 5 inches, whereas I think the Wensleydale was like 6 or 7 inches. It was really long, and it's amazing what a difference that makes for sheen, because the Wensleydale is just so much shinier. You know, I've got the big floodlight on and you can see, like, I know it's not in focus, but you can see like just the movement of the light on there. It's just amazing. Whereas with this one, you get it for sure. It'll make a gorgeous shawl, but not to the same extent. Katrina asked if the sheen is similar to silk. I would say on the Wensleydale, yes, absolutely. On the Romney, no. The Romney is a little bit more matte than what you would expect with silk. Although, oh, I know what it would be like. The sheen on the Romney would be like spinning a silk hanky, where you have like a woolen prep of silk, kind of, where it's not all aligned and all straight and smooth. And you still get a beautiful sheen, but it's just a slightly different prep. So that's what the Romney would be like if you were to compare them. So Rebecca says, I'm a big fan of putting beads on the pop. It's too easy to pick beads that disappear into the knitting. Then I feel, what's the point, since it's so tedious? Hard to tell the color, maybe gunmetal. Actually, I know what you mean, Rebecca, about beads being so tedious to put on. It's one of those difficult things, right? Because I have done both. And the shawls that I wear the most are the ones that I choose the beads of the color that's my favorite. So like in this, my favorite color is blue. And so I would be very tempted to try to find a really bright blue bead. But I get what you mean about wanting that pop of color for sure. Okay, I'm going to carry on and I'm going to grab my next spin that I'm so excited to talk to you about. And I'm just going to grab it here. All right, so this was my spinner's control card for this spin. I finished this within about, and it's more long wool, I finished this in about 3 hours start to finish, and it was only 2 ounces of fiber, so it was very, very fast. I did it this past week while James was at school because Nora was really needing some quiet time. And while I was spinning away, you guys will love this, I got to the end and I was spinning long draw, and an entire intact lock of Romney was in the comb top. Can you believe, or in the roving? It was pin drafted roving. It was done at a mill up in Kamloops that just reopened. And Lori, who raises these Romney mohair sheep, and she has other ones too. She's got CVM Romney mohair, Angora rabbits. I feel like she has something else and I can't remember. Anyways, she's doing farm yarn and she's raising for meat and fiber. And she said she's just learned a ton. So I've been emailing with her back and forth because I'm actually going to go and visit her farm in August up in Barriere. So for those who know where Barriere is, it's actually north of Kamloops. And it's about 45 minutes north. Tickle. And it's not a very big town. It's mostly farming, lots of ranching. That area of BC is called the Northern Thompson. She's kind of right in the center. And she, I think on her website she says she's in the Southern Thompson. We used to live up there. Can you believe I can't remember? Anyways, her farm, there's lots of ranching up there. It's very, very dry, very deserty. It's not like what it's like down here at all. And it's great for raising animals. There's lots and lots of cattle ranches up there. The name of her ranch is Disdero Ranch, and this is the fiber that I spun. And it just turned out beautifully. I am so happy with this. I spun it on my Sidekick at 22-1, and I spun it long draw. As I was spinning along, because I was spinning long draw, this was totally enabled by Carly. And those of you who are on Slack know who Carly is. And she had come over, this was at Fibers West, she'd come over to the Crafty Jack's booth, and she was like, oh, look what I found. And we were all like, and me and Katrina were oohing and awing over it. And I ran over there on Sunday to see if she had any more. And sure enough. So thank you to Carly, because I probably wouldn't have gotten over there. It was just such a crazy weekend. And I loved spinning this. So I spun it long draw. It's only 2 ounces. I can't remember what my yardage is. I know it's close to 150, 180 yards. But the sheen on this is unbelievable. And because of the mohair, it's just got this incredible halo. And I spun it at 22-1 because I was spinning long draw. And I did do supported long draw. So I had my hand here and I drew back. And then I'd open and allow the twist to run up and then run it into my wheel. It was very, very fast to spin. And the cool thing about it is that as I was spinning, even though I had a lot of twist going into the yarn, because I kept drawing back, I was really watching sort of how twisted the fibers got. So as soon as they were twist locked, I'd run it into the wheel. So I didn't add a whole bunch of extra twist. And then when I went to ply, I just plied it as quickly as I could, because I wanted to keep that twist angle, again, really low and keep it as open as possible. And it created such a glorious yarn. I emailed photos to Lori. I'll unskein it for you guys, and she was really impressed. So we're gonna have a chat. She's gonna be hopefully featured on Wool and Spinning Radio in the summer sometime, or maybe in the early fall, and we're gonna go up to her farm in August. So it's really exciting. But just a gorgeous yarn. And I'm actually sorry that I didn't buy more of this gray, but I do have 8 ounces, or I feel like I have more than that. I feel like I have 10 ounces of this same pin drafted roving, but in cream and undyed. So I'm gonna spin it up and then dye it, and I'm hoping I'll be able to do a sweater. I've got a cardigan in mind that I would like to design, but it just, oh my goodness, it turned out beautifully. I am so happy with this yarn. I'm just gushing. So Katrina says she should come with me to the farm. Absolutely, you should. And Rebecca says she forgets how fast woolen spinning is, and she's not patient enough for true worsted. It's so funny you would say that, because I used to spin everything worsted. Like, I was such a worsted spinner. And I found, like, as I've gone on and as I've gotten more comfortable with woolen spinning, my default, if fiber is roving, and if it's sort of tends to just I don't know what the right word is, but if it sort of tends to be, if I can spin it woolen, I will. It's sort of interesting how that sort of happens. Like, as you get more and more comfortable at your wheel, you just sort of naturally want to spin things woolen because it is so much faster. So, oh, Rebecca, you did spell Kamloops right. That's right. And actually, there's an awesome yarn shop in Kamloops called Eclectic Tree. It's awesome. And it's just really, really, really lovely. Nice shop. And she has roving. She sells spindles, and then she's got yarn. So these 3 long wools are sort of, you know, what I was able to clear off this week with the, it was in focus and it went out of focus. What I was able to accomplish this week. So I'm really happy with that. I think because we're getting up to 35 minutes, and I said this would be about 45 minutes, I'm going to move on to my Zero to Hero spackle spin. You guys are just so awesome for being so patient with me with my coughing and everything. So these are my, this is the sampling that I did from my Zero to Hero spackle. So Zero to Hero is something that we do every year in the Ravelry group. It is a opportunity to take on a big project and to try to work your way through it at your own pace. This year I'm processing a raw fleece, which is right over here in the corner, and I'm washing it and then carding it up. I showed the bats last week in episode 65. And this is my 2-ply sample, and this is my 3-ply sample. So the 3-ply sample came out really, really round. And it has, I did very, very, very tight twist angles. I don't know that I really love the yarn. I spun it semi-worsted, it's a woolen prep, and then I spun it semi-worsted. So it's sort of interesting, like, how that sort of ended up being. I haven't washed these yet, so they haven't bloomed yet. I'm going to wash them this afternoon, and I'll update you next week on how that all goes. And then the 2-ply, again, very, very tight twist angle. I sampled these on my spindle. And the reason why I like to sample on my spindle is mostly because I can get that really high degree of twist in really easily. I really like my Bosworth midi spindle for that. And you can see how much twist is in this still. I haven't washed it, like I said. But I really like this 2-ply yarn. But I do have 3 pounds of fiber. And not after waste and everything, I won't have 3 pounds. But I'd always sort of thought that I would do a sweater. This isn't going to be fiber for my coat, where I'm going to process it and then go process it, spin it, dye it, weave it, and then sew. This isn't that project, because this fiber is just too fine. Because of the merino in it, it's just too fine. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a weaver, and she was saying that she thinks that it's just because it's so lovely next to the skin. It's so soft. She thinks that it would actually be nicer as a cardigan or a sweater. So I'm inclined to agree with her. So I think I'm going to spin up some more. I have those 2 big bats, but I really want to decide what I'm going to do, because I don't want to spin any more and then not and then start cutting into how much fiber I have for my actual finished project. I'm just torn between whether I should do a round 3-ply or the 2-ply. I just don't know which would be better. The 3-ply would give me stitch definition, and it would be great for cables if I was going to do a cabled sweater. The 2-ply won't wear as well. It'll pill a little bit. I need to do some knitted swatches, and I probably need to spin up some more 3-ply and actually swatch it. And I think part of it, I always get like this at this point in a project. Yeah, Katrina's saying she likes the 3-ply. I always get to this point in projects like this where I'm like, I almost kind of get paralyzed with decisions. And it's because everything that we do in spinning, because we're working from a raw item, we have to make decisions at every single step along the way. And I find I get to a point where I just can't make any more decisions. Almost kind of get paralyzed. So Rebecca says, based on things I've read, since it's so soft, 3-ply would also protect it. So you're absolutely right. It would wear better. And then, of course, do I want cables or texture? Becca asks. So that's what I have to decide. And I think I need to spin more of the 3-ply. And I think I need to spin it not on my spindles. I need to spin it on my wheel and spin it long draw and then ply it up. Because do you remember my brown, what was it called? It was by Hohi Locatelli. It was the lemongrass. And I spun that long draw, and it was a 3-ply. And I loved that yarn. It was very similar to the type of prep that I'm getting with this. So if I spin up a bigger sample of the 3-ply, I think I'll have a better idea of what I want to do and how it evens out in the knitting. Because right now I look at this yarn and I'm like, oh, it's so uneven. But then you put it next to your skin and you're like, oh, it's so soft. So it also has a nice sheen. Talking about long wools again, this has a really lovely sheen. And again, it's that Romney. It's really long stapled compared to what a traditional merino would be. But these are merino Romney crosses, and of course they're just really lovely because it has the durability of the Romney, the sheen of the Romney, but the softness of the merino. And I'm not a massive merino fan. You guys know how I feel about merino. I kind of get burned out on all the things merino, but I do really love what this looks like, and it'll take dye beautifully. So I'm sorry I keep coughing. All right, I'm going to talk about my Marigold cowl because I have not been able to talk about this week after week after week. This is the yarn that I'm spinning, that I'm using for it. You guys might remember this. It was Smith & U BFL. It was a pin draft, and it was in focus, and then it decided to go out of focus. So this is the Marigold cowl by my friend Nina, and you guys all know Nina. I hope I'm calling it the right thing. Is it actually called? Yes, it is. It's called the Marigold cowl, right? Is it called the Marigold cowl? I've been calling it the Marigold cowl. I don't have the, I never, when I print off my patterns, I very rarely print patterns, but I never print like the title page because I always want to save on paper, and I tend to print things over top of things. So like this is the, maybe I can show it down here. This is the pattern, but like there's another pattern underneath and there's another pattern over top. You know, because that's smart, and then you can read the chart really clearly, and it's like really easy to follow instructions. Seeing a little bit of a snippet into my crazy. I think it's the Marigold cowl. Anyways, it's a cowl. It's attached to the back neck, and you work your way down, and it's a triangle. And this is the fiber that I'm using. It actually matches my shirt. It was a pin drafted roving from Smith & U that I had spun on my spindles a while ago. And I tried a couple of different projects with it, and nothing kind of worked. One of the reasons is because the fourth ball of yarn that I spun was it was a different gauge, remember? It was quite a bit thicker. I think I talked about this back at Christmas time. It was quite a bit thicker. So I've only really got 3 skeins to work with. Anyways, I started knitting, and I'm going to turn this around for you because this is actually the bottom. So this is the bottom here. So is this upside down for you? Yes. Oh, sorry about my needles. So this is the lace pattern, and it's just coming out beautifully. I'm really, really loving this. And I think there's enough interest in the yarn, but it's not taking away too much from the stitch pattern of the Marigold. It's a really engaging pattern because it's not so overly complicated that you're getting, this is one chart repeat. And I finished it and I wasn't like, oh, now I have to do it again. I was like, oh, this is like, I'm really looking forward to doing this again. I was excited about it because it wasn't so much. So I really like the I-cord on the edging. And eventually this will block out so that it'll look like this, like so that this will be down here and this will be coming up on the side, and it makes the cowl up like that. So far so good with the yarn, and I'm really enjoying the pattern. And of course you guys all know Nina. She was interviewed this month on Wool & Spinning Radio. It wasn't really an interview, we were more just talking, but still it's just lovely to oh, it is the Marigold cowl. Okay, good, thanks Becca. It's so good to finally be able to work on one of her patterns. So that is that. I'm really loving that. So the show is already up to 45 minutes this week. Minus edits, of course. I want to thank you all for tuning in and for being here. Does anybody have any questions about the Marigold cowl before I say goodbye? I'll just give you guys a minute because I know there's the delay. Oh, Rebecca says cute. Thank you. And Katrina says we love your crazy. Thanks, Katrina. I appreciate it. I wanted to say a special shout out to Florence, who's up at 3 in the morning watching this. So welcome to Florence. Thank you. I was going to say something earlier in the show and I forgot. But that's awesome. Oh, now Rebecca wants to try it too. That's awesome. It's just a great pattern. Okay, everyone, I'm going to say goodbye. I feel another coughing fit coming on. Thank you for staying with me today, and thank you for giving me a shot and being able to do this. It's really fun. This room is really hot. I'm sweating. I need to think about maybe putting a fan on because I've got all these cameras and all of these lights, so that's lots of learning for this week for the first time. For those who are watching this later in the week, this live streaming is brought to you by our Patreons, and it will be the third show of every month will be live streamed from now on. I hope that you enjoyed the opportunity to interact in a different way and in a different format, and thank you to everybody who's in the chat room this week and for interacting while I'm recording and learning this new way of producing this show. So until next week, I hope you're all busy at your wheels and creating lots of amazing hand spun. And until next time, happy spinning. Bye, guys.